So let's just dive right in because we're about to unpack one of the most powerful ideas you might ever encounter. And it's all right there in the title. The world you see, it's not real.
I know, that's a pretty bold statement, right? But stick with me here. Your brain is lying to you right now. Not because it's mean, but because it has to. The rich, vibrant world you're perceiving isn't some perfect one-to-one photograph of reality. Nope. It's a useful, simplified, and ultimately personal map. And what's really wild is that this totally radical 21st century sounding idea actually comes from a 15th century thinker, a guy named Nicolaus of Cusa. He's the one who gave us this incredible metaphor for understanding the limits of our own knowledge. This idea that we're all living our lives guided by a map, not by the world itself. Okay, so here's the core concept, nice and simple. You've got the territory. That's reality as it actually is, in all its infinite, messy, beautiful complexity. And then you have your map, which is your brain's interpretation of that reality. And the most important rule of the game is this: the map is never the territory. It just can't be. Think about it like this. The territory, the real world, is infinitely unique. Every single snowflake, every person, every moment is a one-of-a-kind thing. Our minds, well, they just can't handle that much raw data. It's too much. So to make sense of it all, our brain simplifies everything through comparison. This is exactly why Cusa said all human knowledge is basically conjecture. It's not absolute truth, but a really, really good guess based on the map we've drawn for ourselves. So the big question is, how exactly does our brain draw this map? Well, Cusa had a fascinating explanation for this. He said the human mind itself is basically a measuring device. Cusa was building on this ancient idea, that we are the measure of all things. He believed our mind isn't just some passive window looking out at the world. Oh no, it's an active tool. It measures and it categorizes everything it sees, sorting reality into these neat, understandable little boxes to build our mental map. So how does this actually play out? Let's take a simple example. Imagine you see a tree. Not just any tree, but this specific tree right in front of you. It's got that unique pattern of branches, that exact shade of green. That's the real thing. That's the territory. But for your brain to understand what it's seeing, it has to ignore some of those unique details and just file it under the general concept of tree. That mental category, that's part of your map. It's super useful, but it's always a simplification of the real unique thing. And this lays out the whole process perfectly. See, on one side, you've got reality itself, all these unique, natural forms. Then on the other side, you've got our minds creating these simplified, artificial forms just to make sense of it all. But the most important part, it's that huge gap in the middle. Cusa saw this as a totally unbridgeable divide. It's the permanent space between our mental map and the actual territory. Now, to make this idea of an unbridgeable gap absolutely crystal clear, Cusa used this beautiful and really simple mathematical analogy, the polygon and the circle. All right, imagine your knowledge about anything, literally anything, is a polygon. A shape with straight sides. It could be a simple triangle or something way more complex. Now, imagine that absolute truth. The territory itself is a perfect circle. As you learn more, what happens? You add more and more sides to your polygon. 100 sides, 1,000, 1,000,000. It starts to look a heck of a lot like the circle, doesn't it? But it never actually becomes one. So here's the kicker. No matter how many sides you add, your polygon will always be made of tiny, straight lines, and it will never be the perfectly curved circle. There's always going to be a gap, even if it's microscopic, between your knowledge and the absolute truth. Your map can always get better, but it will never, ever be the territory. Okay, so what does this all mean in the real world? Why does this even matter? This is where things get really, really profound. Cusa makes this critical distinction between sensing something and knowing something. So when you sense something, you're in direct contact with the territory. Your senses are just taking in its raw, unique existence. You're experiencing that it is. But to know it, to actually put it on your map, your rational mind has to ask a totally different question. What is it like? And it answers that by comparing the new thing to categories you already have, basically reducing its uniqueness to find what's similar. Just think about what this means for other people. You can sense their absolute, one-of-a-kind uniqueness in a moment of true connection. But the second you try to know them, to define them, you're filtering them through your own map, your categories of introvert, funny, smart. The true, irreducible person is always just beyond your complete conceptual grasp. Cusa took this huge theological idea that God is ultimately unknowable, and he applied it to every single thing in creation. Every person, every animal, every object is, in its deepest core, beyond our full comprehension. Now, this might sound kind of like a downer, like we're all just trapped in our own little subjective bubbles. But Kusawa saw this limitation as our greatest strength. And this brings us to his amazing concept of learned ignorance. You see, the most dangerous people in the world are the ones who mistake their map for the territory, the ones who think their perspective is objective reality. Learned ignorance is the wisdom of knowing that your knowledge is incomplete. It's about understanding that you are the map maker. And once you truly realize that, you suddenly gain the power to change the map. You can question its borders, update its landmarks, and start exploring all those uncharted areas. So I'll just leave you with this question. The world you see is a map you've inherited and that you've drawn for yourself. If you can accept that it's just a map, just one version of reality, not reality itself, what new worlds, what new connections, what new truths could you possibly discover by learning to draw it differently?